In Hollywood, where dazzling lights often conceal tears and calculation, women have always had to make sacrifices to survive. Some once had to hide their pregnancies just to keep a role. And one of those women, once told she was too old at just 40, is now at 67, the longest-running face of L'Oreal, a living emblem of timeless beauty. That woman is Andie MacDowell, a name once underestimated by Hollywood. Yet somehow, she managed to break free from every mold the world tried to confine her in. Her story is not merely that of a star, but the quiet secret of a woman who learned how to create her own worth and to stand tall against judgment and criticism. Born as Rosalie Anderson McDowell on April 21, 1958, in the small town of Gaffney, South Carolina, Andie MacDowell did not have a peaceful childhood. Her mother, a music teacher, struggled with alcoholism, while her father was a lumber company executive. When Andie was 6, her parents divorced. And from then on, the little girl had to learn how to take care of herself in a home that was never truly stable. Her childhood was defined by fear and a sense of responsibility far beyond her years. She would often wake up in the middle of the night to check if her mother's cigarette had gone out because the floor was already full of burn marks. The small house always carried the smell of alcohol, cigarette smoke, and the heavy silence that followed her mother's drinking. Andie both loved and worried for her mother, quietly cleaning up the mess, throwing away empty cans, and reminding herself she had to keep everything safe. At 17, Andie tried to help her mother go to rehab, but failed. A year later, doctors said her mother would not live more than 5 years. The prediction came true. Her mother died of a heart attack while Andie was in Paris. Among her few remaining keepsakes was a letter her mother wrote in her final years, saying she had quit drinking and was proud of her daughter. Andie still keeps that letter, as if to feel her mother's presence somewhere near. Growing up in an environment of constant instability, Andie came to realize she was a codependent child, always alert, always taking responsibility for others, always trying to fix what was beyond her control. Those sleepless nights and the fear of seeing her house burn down etched a deep anxiety into her, something she would later understand as the lingering mark of childhood trauma. What haunts Andie the most is that her mother was never a bad person. On the contrary, she was intelligent, gentle, and deeply artistic. She never made her daughter feel ashamed. She was simply a woman burdened by inner torment and perhaps by bipolar disorder that no one at the time knew how to name. Even in her drunken moments, she was the one who passed on to Andie a love for theater, music, and the image of free, modern women she saw on television. That coexistence of opposites, a mother who was both fragile and progressive, both heartbreaking and inspiring, became the core conflict within Andie's soul. She carried both sides within her, the wound of a child forced to grow up too soon, and a profound compassion for those who struggle with emotional instability. That childhood taught Andie to tense up, to take care of others, to keep everything under control, while hiding her own feelings. That weight would later resurface in her most emotionally complex roles, especially as the emotionally unstable mother in Maid, a character she portrayed with every scar and truth she had ever lived through. After a closed-off, painful childhood, Andie longed for a different beginning. She dropped out of Winthrop University, left South Carolina with just $2,000 and a Ralph Lauren pencil skirt, and boarded a bus to New York in 1979. The era of Studio 54, neon lights, and endless nights of temptation. In that world, people were far more likely to lose themselves than to find their dreams. She tried cocaine once and hated it. All she wanted was to leave that world behind. Fortunately, fate didn't let her give up. In Paris, she met Olivier Chandon de Braille, heir to Moet and Chandon, a man who neither drank nor smoked, and it was that relationship that pulled Andie away from the party lifestyle she never belonged to. Around the same time, her modeling career began to unfold. First photos for Calvin Klein, followed by campaigns for Vogue, Yves Saint Laurent, and other major fashion houses. Yet among a sea of blonde-haired, blue-eyed models, her brown hair, tanned skin, and soft Southern accent were often seen as out of place. And it was from that very runway that Andie MacDowell stepped into cinema, not through formal training, but through collision with a world that demanded she become someone else. She made her debut in Greystoke, The Legend of Tarzan, Lord of the Apes, 1984, a Warner Brothers blockbuster directed by Hugh Hudson, starring opposite Christopher Lambert. It seemed like a golden opportunity, but Hollywood rarely showed mercy to Southern newcomers. After filming Wrapped, Andie discovered that all her lines had been dubbed by Glenn Close, simply because her accent was deemed unsuitable for an English lady. That blow didn't just rob her of her big break, it shattered her confidence as an actress. Critics mocked her, producers hesitated. With every door closing, Andie stood before two choices: give up or start over. She chose the latter. For the next 4 years, Andie quietly studied method acting with coaches from the Actors Studio under the guidance of Harold Guskin, known for his philosophy, "Don't act, live truthfully." She learned to turn her voice, once her biggest weakness, into her most powerful instrument. And then in 1989, the second chance arrived. Sex, Lies, and Videotape, directed by the young Steven Soderbergh. It was a low-budget independent film, yet revolutionary in spirit, telling the story of a housewife named Anne, trapped in a hollow marriage and drawn to a man who communicates only through videotaped confessions. Andie portrayed Anne with eyes that carried the weight of solitude without needing words, repression, insecurity, and fragility that only those who have known loneliness can truly recognize. Her performance helped the film win the Palme d'Or at Cannes, earning her the Independent Spirit Award, the Los Angeles Film Critics Association Award, and her first Golden Globe nomination. Ironically, during filming, Andie was secretly pregnant with her daughter Rainey, fearing she might lose the role if anyone found out. But this time, no one dubbed her voice. No one replaced her. Sex, Lies, and Videotape became the turning point that proved Andie MacDowell was not just a beautiful face, but a soul capable of telling stories through truth. From the model once dubbed over for being not British enough, Andie emerged as an emblem of 1990s American cinema, soft yet strong. That film was more than a career breakthrough. It was a rebirth, the moment she reclaimed ownership of her own voice, quite literally. If Sex, Lies, and Videotape was the door that first opened for Andie MacDowell to step into the real world of cinema, then the early 1990s marked the era when she reached her peak, imprinting herself in the minds of audiences worldwide and becoming one of Hollywood's A-list stars. In 1990, she starred opposite Gerard Depardieu in the romantic comedy Green Card. The story of a marriage of convenience for residency rights came to life through Andie's charming, natural, and unpretentious performance. The film became a surprise success, both critically and commercially, and earned her a second Golden Globe nomination, solidifying her place in the romantic comedy genre. Few know that Green Card was, in fact, a risky project behind the scenes. Director Peter Weir, who had previously made Dead Poets Society, wrote the screenplay and even used his own money to fund the crew when financing became tangled between 3 co-producing countries, Australia, France, and the US. He also insisted on keeping Gerard Depardieu despite studio objections that he spoke too much French to succeed in Hollywood. In those difficult circumstances, Green Card still became a breakthrough, giving Andie a role both graceful and authentic, proof that even the lightest films can be born from the fiercest creative battles behind the camera. But her true pinnacle came in 1993 with Groundhog Day, the classic directed by Harold Ramis. Starring alongside Bill Murray as the gentle, intelligent, and patient producer Rita, Andie didn't try to steal the spotlight through showy acting. Instead, she chose sincerity, warmth, and subtle restraint. That choice, to take a step back and let her co-star shine, created one of cinema's most beloved on-screen pairings. If Bill Murray embodied chaos and eccentricity, Andie was the grounding force that kept the film's emotions from spinning out of orbit. Few people know that behind the scenes of Groundhog Day, the tension between Bill Murray and director Harold Ramis grew so intense that the two barely spoke throughout filming. One wanted to turn the movie into a philosophical allegory about reincarnation and enlightenment. The other simply wanted a charming romantic comedy. Caught between those opposing visions, Andie MacDowell quietly stood in the middle. Calm, gentle, and sincere, just like her character in the film. Perhaps that's why her role was called the human key of Groundhog Day, a touch of warmth within a cold loop. The film went on to become one of the most beloved movies of all time, and the woman Andie portrayed made audiences believe that sometimes the only way to escape life's endless cycle is to learn how to love again. But that wasn't the end. It wasn't Sex, Lies, and Videotape, nor Groundhog Day, but Four Weddings and a Funeral, 1994, that truly elevated Andie MacDowell to the ranks of global movie stardom. The film, produced on a modest budget of just $4 million, an almost impossible figure for an international production at the time, became a worldwide phenomenon, grossing over $240 million and shattering every stereotype of the British rom-com. The story of Four Weddings and One Funeral seemed simple, yet it touched millions of hearts with its honesty, warmth, and emotional depth. In the film, Andie played Carrie, an American woman who was free-spirited, confident, and a little mysterious, appearing in the restrained, ritual-driven world of the English. The contrast wasn't only in her voice or demeanor, but in every small movement, the way she entered a frame, the flicker of a smile, the look that changed the rhythm of a room. Carrie was the unexpected breeze that swept through the life of Charles, Hugh Grant, a man too polite to live truthfully with his feelings. And it was Andie's naturalness that made it believable. She didn't need clever lines or overt seduction. Her allure lived in the silence between words. Few knew that the role of Carrie was originally written for a British actress, but director Mike Newell and screenwriter Richard Curtis, after revisiting Sex, Lies, and Videotape, realized that only Andie could bring the silence that speaks they were searching for. When she appeared, the tone of the film softened. It was no longer just a love story between two people, but a dialogue between two cultures, two ways of loving, and two forms of loneliness. Screenwriter Richard Curtis once remarked that Andie didn't act in the conventional sense. She listened. And it was that genuine listening that made audiences feel understood, seen, and emotionally connected through every glance and gesture she gave. The line, "Is it still raining? I hadn't noticed," seemingly simple, became one of the most iconic moments in 1990s romantic cinema. It was mocked, parodied, and yet never forgotten, because within it lay the awkward honesty of a woman brave enough to say yes to love, with nothing guaranteed but a passing rain. The role earned Andie her third Golden Globe nomination, elevating her to true A-list status not only in the United States, but also across Europe. where 4 weddings and a funeral came to symbolize modern British culture. To filmmakers, Andie was not just the muse of the romantic comedy genre, but the foundation of a new kind of female character. Gentle, yet intelligent. Proud, yet emotionally self-possessed. But success wasn't just about awards or money. What made this role an eternal milestone in Andie MacDowell's career was that she didn't play a career-defining role. She became herself at her most radiant moment. And for 3 decades, audiences have continued to remember Carrie as a reminder that sometimes a timely look and an authentic presence are all it takes to create something timeless. 3 films, 3 completely different tones, from witty romance to philosophical introspection to tender emotion. All revealed one truth. Andie MacDowell never confined herself to one mold, yet always carried grace and emotional depth into every role. The 1990s were her golden era, but what mattered most was that even alongside towering stars like Gérard Depardieu, Bill Murray, or Hugh Grant, Andie never faded into the background. She didn't steal the spotlight, she gave the film its heart. And that is the true mark of a star. Born into an incomplete family, Andie MacDowell once carried a simple dream: to have a real home, a true family. No alcohol, no sorrow, no collapse, just an ordinary life, something she never had as a child. In 1985, during a photo shoot for Gap in Santa Fe, New Mexico, Andie met Paul Qualley, a former American football player of Norwegian descent who had turned to modeling and would later become a cattle rancher in Montana. It seemed like a chance encounter between 2 people from entirely different worlds. One from the bright lights of fashion, the other from the wide plains and quiet highlands. Yet it opened a hopeful new chapter in her life. Just a year later, they married and moved to a sprawling ranch in Montana, where Andie placed her faith in building a peaceful haven to raise her children, far from Hollywood's chaos. 3 children followed: Justin, born 1986, Rainey, born 1990, and Margaret, born 1994. To the public, Andie MacDowell appeared to have it all: a radiant actress and a devoted mother, balancing fame with family in perfect harmony. But the truth behind that image was far more complicated. Andie once admitted that she had always wanted a successful career, but never at the cost of loneliness or the loss of a real home. To her, success only had meaning if love, family, and inner peace remained intact. That's why she tried to hold both worlds together, working and mothering at once. She acted while pregnant, hid her belly to avoid losing roles, gave birth, and returned to set, not out of ambition, but from fear that everything might fall apart if she stopped. Paul, meanwhile, gradually withdrew from the spotlight, choosing a quiet ranch life and full devotion to the family. Over time, that difference in direction grew into distance. In 1999, after 13 years of marriage, Andie and Paul officially divorced, an ending she never imagined. Everything she had ever sought, a lasting family, a love that endured, had once again fallen into the same orbit that haunted her childhood: separation. Later, Andie confided that the pain wasn't just about losing a husband. It was the feeling that the past was repeating itself in the present. As a single mother raising 3 children, she moved back to North Carolina near her sister, pouring all her strength into giving her kids a childhood that was whole, not perfect, but filled with love. Despite the separation, Andie and Paul maintained mutual respect. They attended their daughter Margaret's wedding to music producer Jack Antonoff together in 2023. In early 2025, Paul appeared alongside their daughter at the Golden Globe Awards, when Jack couldn't attend. He wore a t-shirt printed with the film "Once Upon a Time in Hollywood," Margaret's first major movie role, as a quiet declaration of pride in his daughter. The marriage between Andie and Paul may not have been perfect by ordinary standards, yet within that imperfection, they built a family strong enough to raise grounded, successful children and to preserve what mattered most: kindness toward each other, even after love had changed its form. After the divorce, Andie MacDowell entered a period of profound change, not only in her personal life, but also in the way she redefined love, intimacy, and trust. And then, before she had fully healed, she found herself drawn into a relationship that drew public attention, this time with her co-star, Dennis Quaid. They met while filming HBO's Dinner with Friends, a story about marriage, separation, and the quiet wounds that linger between partners. The film was fiction, but the emotions were real. The connection between Andie and Dennis began through those deeply honest on-screen conversations and continued off-set in private talks. It was a short-lived relationship, quiet and understated, but for Andie, fresh from a painful breakup, it was an emotional experiment that wasn't easy. After her second divorce, Andie entered a long period of silence. She admitted to struggling with a deep emptiness, not merely from losing a partner, but from realizing she had spent most of her life trying to please others. In one interview, she confessed that there was a time when her fear of loneliness was so overwhelming that she would cling to anyone willing to listen, as if they were the only lifeline in the vast emptiness of her life. During that time, Andie began meditating, keeping journals, and attending therapy, things she once considered emotional luxuries. It was also when she learned how to be alone again, not as punishment, but as an opportunity to understand herself more deeply. In later conversations, Andie never shied away from acknowledging her own emotional instability. She understood that growing up with an alcoholic mother, always anxious, always on guard, always trying to protect others, had imprinted on her a pattern of emotional dependency, a tendency to seek worth through being loved or fear of being abandoned. Instead of hiding it, Andie chose to speak openly about it as part of her healing journey. Accepting that she carried long-term wounds didn't make her weaker. It gave her the ability to see difficult-to-love characters with empathy, especially women living with emotional turmoil, walking the line between allure, chaos, and the yearning to be seen. Still, she never gave up on the hope of a lasting family. In 2001, Andie remarried Rhett Hartzog, a successful businessman and her former high school classmate from Gaffney, South Carolina. They reconnected through Andie's sister, a coincidence straight out of one of the romantic films Andie herself might have starred in. At the time, Andie was in her 40s, her 3 children were growing up, and Hollywood had begun turning its back on middle-aged actresses. Perhaps she needed an anchor in an uncertain world. Rhett, who had known her before the fame, represented familiarity, stability, and, most importantly, someone outside the showbiz bubble. They married on November 10, 2001, in a private yet highly publicized ceremony hailed as a real-life fairy tale. Many believed it was the perfect ending for a woman who had endured so much heartbreak. But only 3 years later, in 2004, they quietly divorced, without explanation or scandal. After years of retreat, living close to nature and focusing on motherhood in Montana, Andie MacDowell did not return to Hollywood with a makeover. She didn't dye her hair, didn't get Botox, didn't lift her face. She let her hair turn silver, let her skin wrinkle, and allowed time itself to live on her face, as part of her story. That wasn't defiance. It was a conscious choice, a declaration. I am still beautiful, in the way that belongs to my age. Andie calls it aging with intention. She doesn't avoid aging. She chooses to live in harmony with it. In many interviews, she's emphasized, "I don't need to look younger to feel valuable." Letting her hair go gray wasn't a statement of rebellion, but an act of healing, one that made her feel more comfortable in her own skin than ever before. It was the moment she realized she didn't have to outrun time. She just had to live truthfully and live well. And ironically, that very choice allowed her to continue as L'Oreal's longest-serving global ambassador for a brand built on the message, "Because you're worth it." In an industry once obsessed with youth, Andie MacDowell became living proof of a new definition of beauty: mature, natural, and unafraid of being seen as aging. She once shared that during a photo shoot with the legendary Irving Penn, he bluntly told her she looked like an old woman just because she had recently given birth and hadn't regained her figure. It was a shock, but she didn't back down, didn't apologize for being a mother, and didn't try to become someone else to please others. Years later, when her hair began to turn silver, she let it happen naturally. Some mocked her. Others advised her to dye it. But Andie understood something simple. If even we fear our own aging, how can we expect the world to respect it? And that's exactly why L'Oreal continues to stand by her. Not despite her age, but because of it. In an era when middle-aged women are often erased from advertising campaigns, Andie MacDowell walks the Cannes red carpet with silver hair shining, a confident smile, and unhidden wrinkles, embodying a kind of beauty that hides nothing. Though she is an international icon of film and beauty, Andie MacDowell's lifestyle remains simple, introspective, and unpretentious. At 67, she doesn't live in a lavish Los Angeles mansion, but in a quiet home surrounded by nature on Kiowa Island, South Carolina, where, as she says, "You can't see another house, only trees." That serenity has become the foundation for both her spirit and her grace. No complex rejuvenation treatments, no luxury spas. Andie maintains her appearance through simple, grounded principles: sleeping well, eating clean, practicing yoga, walking daily, drinking plenty of water, and never stressing over her looks. She cares for her skin with basic products, avoids makeup unless necessary, and, above all, refuses to live by anyone else's standards. She once stated that she has a beautiful body, not as a boast, but as a reminder that her body doesn't need to be younger to be loved. She once turned down a dress that was too tight and left her chest aching all night. The next morning, she took off not just the dress, but also the belief that women must suffer to be beautiful. For Andie, beauty means being free of pain and free of pretense. That same attitude extends to how she approaches fashion and public image. She still loves silk gowns and red carpets, but only chooses what makes her feel comfortable, confident, and never forced to please anyone. Her silver hair has become a quiet statement, and her stride, still proud, still luminous, speaks louder than any slogan. In an era when Western women are embracing the call to live authentically with their own faces, no makeup, no concealing age as an act of confidence, people have come to realize that Andie MacDowell was there long before it became a movement. Before the no-makeup trend gained popularity, she had already appeared with her natural silver hair, bare skin, and an unretouched smile. Not for attention, but to prove that a woman's beauty lies not in cosmetics, but in her dignity, self-respect, and honesty. She didn't just talk about self-love, she lived it, becoming living proof that a woman's worth isn't measured by her appearance, but by the light within her, a light that never fades. She also strengthens her mind by joining book clubs, surrounding herself with like-minded friends, keeping a distance from toxic relationships, and reflecting each day on what she has learned and how she has grown. For her, inner growth is what makes a woman truly and enduringly attractive. Alongside yoga and meditation, Andie maintains a quiet spiritual life. She believes in grace, which she describes as the ability to forgive yourself and those who have hurt you. Every morning, she begins her day with a few minutes of silence, praying for her children's peace and for her own. And it is that image of a woman who doesn't fight against time, but lives with it, loves it, and makes it beautiful, that has inspired millions of middle-aged women around the world. Andie MacDowell didn't change for Hollywood. She made Hollywood change the way it sees women who age. From a very young age, Andie understood what loneliness felt like inside an incomplete home. She had to learn how to care for others when she herself was still a child in need of care. That feeling of love mixed with fear and helplessness followed her throughout her youth. When she lost her mother in her 20s, Andie made herself a silent promise. If I ever have children, I will never let them grow up feeling unloved or alone. Because of that, more than anyone, Andie understood how deeply children need their mother. Yet in Hollywood, a place where women aren't allowed to appear fragile, where motherhood can mean being pushed out of the game, she often had to hide that part of herself. There were times when Andie was pregnant and didn't dare to tell anyone. Years later, as a mother, Andie faced a different kind of pain, one that came from her own daughter. Margaret Qualley, the Golden Globe-nominated actress, once said that as a child, she felt as if every time her mother went off to make a movie, it was like watching her kiss another man. It wasn't a reproach, just the way a little girl could express the ache of her mother's absence during moments that mattered most. As a mother, Andie loved instinctively. As an artist, she wrestled with guilt and compromise. And only when those two sides finally collided, in the 2021 Netflix series Maid, where she and Margaret played mother and daughter, did Andie truly have the chance to listen to her child. Not through dialogue, but through their eyes. Those of two women, one once lost, the other once lonely, finding each other again after years of distance. It was Margaret who suggested that her mother play Paula, the erratic, impulsive, man-obsessed mother who keeps hurting her daughter in Maid. She knew Andie had lived enough real pain to reach into that darkness without exaggeration. For Andie, this wasn't just another role. It was a chance to pour everything she had ever lived through. A childhood beside an alcoholic mother, waves of anxiety, emotional dependence, and the fear of never being enough, into shaping a character who, though seemingly despicable, was achingly fragile. She gave Paula her own physical language, the way she walked, looked, touched, the flirty gestures that acted as armor for a deep sense of worthlessness. Inside, Paula was the kind of woman who only felt she existed when she was desired by a man, a psychology Andie knew intimately from real lives she had witnessed. Her immersion was so intense that after filming ended, on the flight home, Andie confessed she still felt stuck in Paula's skin. Even the pair of boots she wore in the series made her hesitate to put them on again, afraid she might start being that woman once more. Maid became more than a late career triumph. It was the point where 3 generations of stories intertwined: the real-life alcoholic mother, the damaging on-screen mother, and the real-life daughter facing her across the frame. It was a rare moment when Andie could answer her own childhood while also hearing her daughter's unspoken pain, through the only language she truly knew: honest performance. During filming, Margaret cried real tears, and Andie, for the first time, didn't act. She later said, When I saw her in that role, I realized all the things she'd never said. And through her, I finally spoke to my own mother. The wounds her mother left behind made Andie feel she'd never fully forgiven. The wounds from her daughter made her feel she'd never been fully understood. Yet between those two silences, she kept living, kept mothering, imperfectly, but with utter sincerity. And perhaps that is the truest image of a woman who has walked through every role imaginable only to finally arrive at herself. Andie MacDowell is more than a movie star. She is a symbol of a generation of women who dared to redefine age and beauty. From a Calvin Klein model to an international film icon, her journey was never built on scandal or spectacle, but on persistence, compassion, and the courage to live truthfully. At 67, she remains L'Oreal's longest-serving ambassador, living proof that time doesn't dim a woman's light. It makes it shimmer in its own way. Andie has become a voice of inspiration for millions of middle-aged women, showing that aging is not a loss, but a form of power, the power to live and to be respected. Rather than trying to stay young, Andie chooses to stay real. And that is what makes her an enduring emblem of modern beauty. Beautiful, not because of perfection, but because of freedom, courage, and the simple grace of being herself. After more than 4 decades in the industry, Andie MacDowell still hasn't stopped. At 67, she continues to work, not by chasing Hollywood's relentless pace, but by following her own rhythm, with the clarity and confidence of someone who has already lived through it all. She currently stars in Hallmark Channel's The Way Home, a series beloved for its humanity and emotional depth. As Dell Landry, Andie portrays a strong yet tender woman, a rare and respectful depiction of mature femininity on screen. The show has entered its 3rd season with steady viewership, and in August 2025, Hallmark confirmed that the cast, including Andie, had begun reading scripts for Season 4, a testament to her enduring appeal on television. Never one to stop challenging herself, in 2024 she surprised audiences with her role in Red Right Hand, alongside Orlando Bloom, playing Big Cat, a tough, sharp-edged crime boss completely unlike her usual gentle persona. The performance earned praise from critics, showcasing an Andie unafraid to step outside her comfort zone and reinvent herself. Though she remains active, Andie has chosen to slow her pace. She left Los Angeles for a quiet home surrounded by trees on Kiowa Island, South Carolina. A place, she says, where you can't see another house, only trees. There she spends her days reading, gardening, and savoring the rhythms of nature. What she calls real happiness after years of noise. Andie MacDowell's greatest joy in recent years hasn't come from fame, but from a new role, being a grandmother. Her eldest son, Justin, welcomed his first daughter in 2022, and by late 2024, her daughter Rainey also gave birth to her first child. Becoming both a grandmother and a maternal grandmother almost simultaneously, Andie described the experience as a soul-to-soul connection, a profound joy that no spotlight could ever rival. In January 2025, she revealed that she had been diagnosed with piriformis syndrome, a condition causing hip and leg pain, but assured fans she had recovered almost completely through physical therapy, yoga, and regular movement. She called her recovery a small miracle, the kind your body gives you when you treat it kindly. That same year, Andie returned to the public eye with renewed confidence and powerful statements. Appearing on The Drew Barrymore Show in September 2025, she shared that she had stopped feeling ashamed of aging and believed that women should never have to apologize for their age. At the 2025 Cannes Film Festival, she made headlines again. Walking the red carpet in a sleek black tuxedo, her silver hair neatly tied back, an image that perfectly captured confident, liberated beauty. Though the peak of her career may be behind her, Andie MacDowell has never seen herself as standing on the sidelines. She continues to speak out boldly against ageism, urging screenwriters to create more stories for middle-aged women, not as background figures, but as fully realized human beings, visible, complex, and full of desire. Looking back at Andie MacDowell's journey, we don't just see a successful actress, we see a woman who has endured nearly every kind of pain life can offer: a childhood lacking love, an uncertain youth, broken marriages, and the years when Hollywood turned its back as her beauty began to fade. Yet from those losses, she found something fame could never give: serenity and faith in her own worth. There were times when the world called her too old, too gentle, or too outdated for Hollywood. But Andie MacDowell never answered with noise. Instead, she quietly made the world look again and rethink what it means for a woman to have passed her supposed prime. And perhaps that is her true power. When you don't need to defeat anyone, only to make sure you never collapse. If Andie MacDowell's story has touched something within you, share your thoughts in the comments below. And don't forget to subscribe to our channel to continue following these emotional journeys, where the spotlight is only the surface, and behind it are the people who have lived, lost, and still found the strength to rise again.